it's good to read books. It's good to educate yourself. But at some point, you just have to step in and do it. And I'm kind of glad. I know a lot of people have mentors and, they might pay for a course. And that's good if you necessarily need it. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't go that route, because then I just went my way and I figured it out. And I didn't end up just like some other mentor, right? My path has been unconventional, but it's worked for me.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yona Weiss, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you today to David Grabiner. What's going on?
Hey, Yona, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. Great to catch up with you. I think last time, I was just kind of joking with you beforehand. Last time we spoke, you were, dealing with some small multifamily properties, and now you've got a portfolio over 150 units, and that's growing, right?
Yeah.
And over 30 million in property, under management, which again is growing, probably going to be twice that by the time this airs. So it's just incredible to see your growth. David, just to you guys a little context, he's based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he's been in real estate for close to 10 years already, and been just pushing it, grinding it, and picking up more properties as the days go on. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I remember just talking with you, it was over a year and a half ago, and we just had a little short conversation, but I mean, it really helped push me to keep going for what I wanted. So I appreciate that.
Well, good for you. I mean, it's incredible to see when, I guess, this industry is so amazing that growth can happen so exponentially and so fast that it's hard to keep up. And I'm just impressed to see, someone like you just putting your head down, plowing, buying properties, just keep it going, making money and making the dream come true. So that's awesome. Good to see. So you do a lot of, a lot of the work hands-on, right? Meaning you don't, as opposed to a lot of other guests that we've had on the show who are, real estate syndicators and they're big, multifamily investors. Well, a lot of what you've done has literally been like grassroots. What I mean by that is it's really just you, right? I mean, it's for the most part.
Yeah. And I've done it all, like every aspect of the business, from finding the deal, putting the deal together, money, fixing the toilets, whatever it is. I mean, the maintenance, I have done all of it hands on. And I like that. And now I can kind of choose which parts I hire out. Mm-hmm. But still, I am way more involved probably than I should be. And I need to work on hiring people and step back. But yeah, it's kind of like a one-man operation. And then I hire a couple people here and there. But I don't have any full-time employees at the moment. But I'm working on changing that.
Well, what is it that you like most? I mean, obviously, when you're thinking about starting to hire people, when you're thinking about starting to grow the company, as opposed to just, buying a property here, buying a property there, man, what is it if you could choose one role? And obviously, a CEO type person is kind of just handling everything and overseeing everything. But if this is one thing that you love the most about real estate, what would that be?
I think I'm addicted to buying properties. So finding the deal, putting it together, because it's kind of a creative outlet. I used to think I really wasn't creative, but now I realize I just have a different creative outlet. And my outlet is how to figure out how to make a deal work, putting the money together, what do I need to do to this property? How can that become a good deal? How can I get access to other good deals? I think that is the thing I enjoy the most. And that's why I can't stop buying stuff.
Well, there you go. And finding the deals themselves, obviously, is probably is probably part of that, right?
It is.
I mean, you're locally focused, right? Chattanooga is. So
for my residential properties, I self-manage all of it. I got 170 units, got another 47 under contract. So by the time this airs, I will definitely be over 200. And yeah, I'm managing them myself. So because of that, and the reason I do, and I know this is not normal. Most people with that many units are not managing it themselves. But the reason I do only invest in Chattanooga is because I've seen so many times the management just kill a deal. So many times, bad management. And then people don't even realize that their properties are being badly managed. They just think this is just normal. Mm-hmm. in whether it's, high expenses or high vacancy or low rents, or so many times, time and time again, I see management companies just screwing up.
Right.
So for multifamily, management is so important that I keep it in-house. Now I do want to grow, so I have employees, so I don't have to do it all myself. But right now it's just me, and I'm going to grow that. But that's why I'm just focused in Chattanooga. For my commercial properties, those are a little bit easier to manage. So I'm buying anywhere, within the Southeast. Basically, I'm looking. So far, all my stuff is still in Tennessee, but in 5 hours away in Tennessee.
Okay.
But still, yeah, in commercial, because that can be managed from afar pretty easily.
Right. And when we say commercial, you have a retail property, office buildings, a lot of those things you can, have someone, a leasing person on site, or someone just helping you lease those things out. Once you have a contract and you have, things in place, there's not much to be done on a daily, day-to-day basis. And
I realized that really soon, that when things are full, there's not a lot of work to do. It's when you have turnover, when you have vacancies, that's when there's a lot of work to do. So I work really, really hard just to keep my stuff full. And I might not maximize the maximum amount of rent I can get, but I maximize my rent collected in the number of days in the year. So I try to never be vacant. I try to full all the time. And the same goes to commercial. Like when your commercial properties are 100% full, you're not dealing with trying to get it rented up. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really, like you said, it's being creative, but there's strategies behind it. It sounds like you have a lot of, just a knack for the experience of property management, right? I mean, it's something that you're doing on your own, and you kind of figure that out on your own. And I've heard this time and time again, that property management can kill a deal, bad property management. And I've seen it myself countless times, but that seems like something you could find someone to help, run that, kind of enable you to grow faster.
And the truth is, all the big companies who are doing big syndications, eventually they bring property management in-house.
Right.
It's just when does it happen?
Right. Exactly.
So if I ever, and I don't know if I'm really going to ever go that big, but if I ever do, I'll have such an advantage because I will know exactly how this property management company needs to work because I've been doing it, right? I won't need to be reinventing it at that point. Because they all get there eventually, because they all realize it's such a huge part. It's just when the economies of scale, when you're hiring people, when you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whenever that point comes, if that point comes, it'll make sense on its own. Like you'll know at that point, like this is something that needs to be done, right? So just to be an easy transition probably to do that. And if you're the one that's training people, right, you know exactly how to have it done right, in the way that you like it. So that's important. You kind of have a bit of an unconventional way that you got into real estate. You mind sharing a little backstory?
Not everybody starts as a hospital administrator in the Congo when they get into real estate investing. Isn't that everyone's backstory?
I mean, I'm trying to think if anyone else has been in the Congo. Other countries in Africa for sure, but Congo, I don't know. Tell us about that. Like, what was that about?
So I grew up as a missionary kid in Africa. I went to high school in Kenya, met my wife there. She's from Argentina. Came back to the States, went to college, and her parents had started a hospital. Her dad's a surgeon. They had started a hospital in the Congo, and they asked if we could come over and help. I'd gotten my MBA. My wife's a nurse, so it was a good fit. And at the time, I was just working, basically selling higher education with the University of Phoenix. And I was done with that. I was like, I need to get out of here. I was not meant for the corporate world at all. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we went back to the Congo and started working I just jumped in. I didn't know French. They speak French over there. I didn't speak French. I'd never worked in a hospital at all. Just kind of the story of my life. I just jumped in and started figuring things out and putting systems in place and helped growing the hospital. But while I was over there, I was like, you know what? It would be really cool to live anywhere in the world and not have to worry about how much money I'm making. I could just go live somewhere. And then I decided, okay, I got interested in this financial independence, retire early movement. And so while I was there, I was like, okay, stocks are going to take way too long. Let me start investing in real estate, save some money and start investing in real estate.
So how did you do that? Like from the Congo, from Africa, you started, or how did you go about doing that?
So my dad, fortunately, he kind of liked the idea as well. And he still lived in the Chattanooga area. So we formed a partnership. We put 50-50 the money in and we bought a quadplex. And fortunately, we were getting in a good time, like 2014. I mean, I should have just bought everything for sale in 2014 if I had known, right?
Right, everyone.
Essentially, everything has doubled since then, if not more. So, but it was a good time. We got in. It was working. He was still working full time, and he actually started as the property manager. He was here. He was doing the property manager and had a full-time job. And we did that one quadplex, and I would be over there and I'd be looking on the MLS, like searching for properties. I would call. I have a Google Voice number so it looked like I was calling from Chattanooga. I'd be like, hey, so I'm interested in this property. My business associate will come out and look at it. And They had no idea I was in the Congo, right?
Right.
But I had some struggles. Like I couldn't get a loan in my name. So we had to put all the loans in my dad's name, but we were putting the down payments together. So there's a lot of properties that I own that my name's not on it anywhere except on an agreement that me and my dad have. I mean, I'm not on the loan. I'm not on the deed anywhere. Because that's how we started. I mean, I was out of the country. You can't get in. The only way you can notarize something outside of the country and be accepted in the U.S. is at the U.S. Embassy.
Interesting.
Like that's the only way they accept it, at least in third world countries. I don't know if they accept in other, but in the Congo, that's the only way. And for good reason, because just like other things in Congo, I could notarize Obama's signature over there. And for $20, it's notarized, no problem. And the U.S. Embassy is like, from where I was living, it took a day. You have to fly there and fly back. Like you couldn't just get there. It took a whole 2 days, really. You have to fly there one day and then do it and then fly back the next day, like 2 days to go notarize something. So
right, that wasn't practical.
Yeah, not at all.
But that's incredible. I mean, just doing it in a creative way and figuring out how you do things. You were working full time. Your dad was working full time, and then you just figured it out, right?
Just bought the property and started doing it. And started figuring it out of the way. Like, I think a lot of people want everything laid out for them. And it's good to read books. It's good to educate yourself. But at some point, you just have to step in and do it. And I'm kind of glad. I know a lot of people have mentors and, they might pay for a course. And that's good if you necessarily need it. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't go that route because then I just went my way and I figured it out. And I didn't end up just like some other mentor, right? My path has been unconventional, but it's worked for me.
Yeah. And it is, everyone has a unique path. And I think a lot of people are looking for, more of an easy route, I would say, in taking that direction with a mentor. And obviously you can get further a lot quicker that way for a lot of people, but you won't learn as much because learning through experience, as you've shown, has helped you grow to where you've come to. And I think in your background and just starting out helping to run a hospital in the middle of Africa is, kind of speaks to who you are and how your real estate business kind of took off in the same way.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, it's incredible. What would you say advice for someone who's like, listen to this and they're like, well, yeah, I could figure it out on my own too, but can I still do it? Like, is this still doable nowadays? Like you said, stuff has doubled in price since 2014 when you got started. What about now? Right now, is it still a good time to be buying and just starting out, jumping in?
Of course. If you have the right reason why you want to do it, there are still deals to be had. Just because most things are selling for double what they were before, maybe the rents have also doubled. So it's still a good deal. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you can get one that's run down and you just have to be more creative is the way I look at it. But if you really want to sacrifice, at least in my area and in a lot of areas, you could just go and buy a duplex and live in one side and get an FHA loan and only put the 3% down and rent out the other side. And I don't care what you buy that duplex for, that would be a good deal. Mm-hmm. Because, maybe in Los Angeles or somewhere, I don't know, not in the crazy markets, right. But normally that will be a good deal, even if you're overpaying because you're living in one side, you're paying way less, and it's a sacrifice, right? And a lot of people don't want to sacrifice. It's a sacrifice because you don't get the nice house. But if I were to say anyone who's starting over, like that's how you should start is like sacrifice and go live in one side of a duplex or even better, a quadplex. And then you'll be getting a good deal because you'll be saving so much money on your housing payment.
Right. Because, obviously the rents from the other units are going to cover your mortgage. And be able to just have that income. It's a great way to start out. I think a lot of people don't realize that opportunities like that even exist. And I think for some people and myself, I'm speaking for myself as well, it's difficult because maybe in the area that you live or that you want to live, things like that aren't available.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes things more difficult. You kind of have to be more creative in order to find a deal, find a way to get involved. What would you say would be like the most creative or one of the most creative deals that you've done?
Creative in which way and how to get it done? Okay. So let me tell this story. I'll try to tell it quickly. There was a package of 24 units. It was like quadplexes on one street, but it was a private street. It's kind of like an apartment complex, but not really. But it's being sold as an apartment complex, 24 unit, right? And about 12 or 14 of the units are empty, but it's all in good shape. Really old, weird seller, not weird, but, difficult seller who has a lawyer who is really, really difficult. And this lawyer would literally kill any offer that came. I don't know why, but the seller would not sell without the lawyer's permission, and the lawyer would not give permission. He would come up with an excuse. I tried to buy the thing 4 times, and I come up with all these different ways, raise money, going to buy it cash, going to do this, going to do that. No, 2 years, this property sat on the market. I failed to buy it. Everyone else in town failed to buy it.
It was half vacant.
Half vacant, right? Half
Crazy.
Vacant, but in good condition. Like he kept it up. Like there was no issues as far as like it's in disrepair or whatever. He just did not care to fill it. Like I don't even know how the 10 tenants that were there, how they even ended up there, because he never would answer the phone if you called to try to rent there, and he never advertised anywhere. Anyways, so it falls out of contract, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to contact him directly. There's no longer a listing. I contact him directly. I said, listen, I want to buy this property. Just tell me what you want. We'll work it out. Your lawyer can just drop the contract and I'll just buy it, right? Because I know it's a good deal. So originally he wanted 1.2. He then said, I'll sell it for 1.1 since there's no realtor involved. I didn't even ask for that deduction. I was like, okay, fine. And we wrote down these what we need to do, like other points in the contract. Right. He sends it to his lawyer. And this lawyer, this is how he worked. He sends not an email, but like a PDF in an email, like kind of like a fax to email directly to me. And he says, deposit $1.1 million in this escrow company, and then we will sign the contract.
That's not how deals.
Right?
That's not how things work.
Right? So I called the escrow company. I'm like, hey, so I need to deposit 1.1 million here, but I don't have a purchase and sales agreement. And the lady's like, I don't think we can do that.
Yeah, right?
But I talked to my investor, and this is the thing. The 1.1 million is coming from another investor. And I told him the deal, and I was like, listen, this is a good deal. We're getting it for 1.1. It's worth 1.8 in like 3 months once I get it filled. Like there's like $700,000 just sitting there, And this is why I get it like amped up. Like,
Sure.
I see money just sitting there, like just needs to be accessed. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, okay. But I told him, because it was his money, I said, let me pay you, because I don't know if the deal's still going to go through. Let me pay you 4% interest while the money sits in escrow, because I just want to be, respectable to your money, because this deal might not go through and then you'll get your money back. But while it sits there, let me just pay some interest on it. He's like, oh yeah, sure. No problem.
Yeah, of course. Good deal.
And so I contacted the actual owner of the escrow company, and we drew up an escrow agreement that allowed us to transfer the money into the escrow account that would then transfer to the PSA once the PSA was signed. So it's felt good, everything, Now the lawyer doesn't like our escrow agreement. And the title company guy's like, but the escrow agreement's between me and the buyer. It only matters to you once we sign a PSA. Right. So whatever terms you want, just put it in the PSA. But the lawyer would not drop the PSA. I drew up like a simple PSA for him, like as simple as possible, like basic terms. And he was basically okay with it, but he wasn't okay that the 1.1 million wasn't hard before even a PSA was signed.
That's crazy.
Right? Like,
I've never heard of anything in my
and
life.
I could not figure out what this lawyer's problem was. Like, I still to this day, I don't know what his problem was. So I called the title guy. I'm like, man, what are we going to do? He's like, well, the money's here. The title's clear. Done the title search. We don't actually need a PSA to close. If you show up and the sellers show up, and if you sign the documents and they sign the documents, it's done.
Who needs the lawyer, right?
So I was like, well, if you can convince the seller and the lawyer to do that, I'll do it. I'll waive my inspection. Because I had walked maybe 8 or 9 of the units. So I had a sense of how they were. And I knew he wasn't in disrepair. And I knew how it was. I had a sense for it, right? Like, okay, newbies, don't do this. Don't buy it without inspections. All right? Please don't do that. Yeah. So I waived my inspection, didn't do any inspections. I just showed up on Friday at 10 a.m. And they showed up too. We signed the documents. And after we were done signing, the lawyer acted like this was just like the most normal closing ever. Like, oh yeah, this is how all deals go. Like, it wasn't hard. Like, it didn't take 2 years. Like, oh yeah, no. He was like easy breezy. I was like, come on. I really wanted to say something to him, but I was like, no, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and closed it. And then after we closed, he was like, we should probably sign that PSA now.
What?
So we signed the PSA after the deal was done.
It was like,
I was like, whatever, I'll sign it. Doesn't matter. Oh,
he needs it for his record, so he can. He can charge more money for his time.
And then I paid for that lawyer bill because I put that in the PSA. It actually wasn't in the PSA, but it was in the agreement with the seller. I told him I would pay for his lawyer costs because he had been incurring all these lawyer costs and it's not been selling, and he was getting mad. But it was only the lawyer's fault. But he was getting mad at everyone else that he was getting all these lawyer fees and it wasn't selling. So
that's why the lawyer didn't want him to sell, because he kept getting the fees.
I guess. That's the only thing I could think of. But in the end, I stuck true to my word, even though it wasn't in the contract. I was like, yeah, okay. He sent me the bill later. He's like, this was the bill. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And I paid his lawyer bill. And it was funny because the seller was like, yeah, I mean, I know it wasn't in the contract, but a word's a word. I was thinking like, why didn't you accept my word before when I was giving you the word I was going to buy it? But
right.
Anyways.
Right. People always see, it's always more clear on their side, their vision, but that's pretty crazy. So that was an extremely creative deal to get closed.
And then I refinanced within 4 months. We pulled all the money out, gave it back to the investor. While all his money was in, he was 50-50 partners. Then when his money came out, he became a 25% partner in the deal. So he's in perpetuity. He has 25% equity, but he got all his money back in like 5 months.
That's awesome.
So it's great for him. And we're doing it again. He liked that kind of setup so great that now we're doing a 3.2 million, the 47 units I have under contract, 3.2 million. He's putting cash, and we're going to do the same kind of thing again.
Amazing. So, that's awesome. Yeah. And you didn't really have much money or any money invested in the deal yourself?
No, nothing. Mm-mm.
That's incredible. So this just goes to show you there's so many ways to, obviously you have to have an investor that trusts you, right?
Yeah.
To do that. But you can, people are thinking, well, how can I get involved in real estate without any money? Like, I don't have money first you got to find someone who believes in you.
Trust you. Right. And you have to have some sort of, a lot of people want to make money, but bring no value.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you have to be bringing value. Just because I didn't bring money, I'm bringing a heck of a lot of value to that deal and to that investor.
Sure. And
so much value so that I'm able to keep 75% of the deal and put no money in. Right. But there's a lot of value that goes in there. But if you can figure out how to bring that value, you don't need to bring the money.
Right. And yeah, of course, that goes without saying almost. I mean, you brought so much to that deal. I mean, believe it, the terms and the whole story with the seller and the lawyer. I mean, that's just crazy. That's definitely one for the storybooks. Well, I'm glad you shared that with us here. That's incredible. And I'm sure there have been several others like that, but it's awesome to see that, you don't let obstacles get in your way. If you find a good deal, go after it, right? 2 years, you said, took you 2 years to finally get to that point where he was even willing to sell it.
And in the beginning, I never would have had the skill and the confidence to put together the deal I did 2 years later. Obviously, I had grown, and my initial, it was still a good offer in the beginning. By all means, I would have closed and I should have bought it 2 years earlier. But in the end of the day, I ended up getting a better deal because I bought it 2 years later for less than I was going to buy it 2 years before. The property values had gone up even higher.
Right.
So, yeah. But I had the confidence and the skill set that I didn't have 2 years before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's incredible. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. David, I want to transition right now to the final four, right? These are 4 questions I ask all of our guests. First question for you is going to be, what's the worst job that you ever had?
That's tough because I always learn something from the jobs. Like, I'm that type of person, like, no matter how bad it is, I'm always gaining value from it. But probably selling life and health insurance door to door to the low income people of Chattanooga was probably the worst job. But in a sense, I learned so much about the city of Chattanooga that helped me become an investor. And how to talk on the phone and everything. So I learned so much from it. So I even feel bad saying that was the worst job, but it probably was the worst.
Right. I mean, listen, there's obviously things that you learn from everything, right? And that's a great mindset to have. But going door to door selling insurance is not easy, and not, definitely not so fulfilling, probably. But especially when you probably got turned down, much more than.
It was 2007, and jobs were hard to come by back then, man. Even for college grads, I mean, that was something.
That's crazy, yeah. But learning the ins and outs of the city, I'm sure that was well worth it. That's awesome. So next question for you is, what is a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift? So
I might say it's by T. Harv Eker, The Millionaire Mindset, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
No, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker. Very short book. And it kind of shifted my mind from, I started originally like, okay, I only need a little bit of money, to realizing I was limiting myself and thinking that getting a lot of money would be bad. Coming from a missionary background, growing up with very little, there's a lot of internal things in our mind that limit us. So that book really changed how I thought about money.
That's really important. And I think it can't be stressed enough, because you're absolutely right. There are, especially, and I can relate to this as well, like when you're growing up and you have, limited funds and you live a very frugal and a very humble lifestyle, you think that money is bad, or money, like, what do I need all that money for? But when you realize how much you can do and how much you can create and how much more you can give back and how many things you can do with just opening that up, I think that's, it's so powerful that we're limiting ourselves, like you said, without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll definitely put that on the book list, and put in the show notes for anyone who wants to check that out. And the third question for you is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I think I'd like to become better at surfing.
Surfing in Chattanooga?
Well, no, I mean, I'll have to go somewhere else. We're going to the Dominican Republic for like 6 weeks in January. So,
cool.
Yeah. And that's another thing. People think like if you manage your properties, you can't go on vacation. I take a lot of vacation.
For self-managing, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I've always, every year I'm taking at least 2 months of vacation, even though I'm self-managing.
That's pretty cool. What are some of the things you do to make that happen? Self-managing usually.
Yeah, well, there's busier times of the month than not. So going when it's not your busier time of the month, like going after the 7th when all the money's supposed to be in, right? Right. And then coming back, we around the 1st. So that's one thing. Being available by phone for any emergencies, and then realizing, you know what, you're not going to fill all the vacancies while you're gone. Like things aren't going to run as smoothly when you're gone. But as long as you have like a maintenance person in place that you can always just like call and they can take care of the major issues,
right? Then
you can go. Like it's okay to lose a little bit of money or profitability while you're on vacation. Yeah. So you can go on vacation.
That's a good mindset. Absolutely. Do you have most of your tenants on like electronic paying systems and things like that?
Yeah, the majority, although some still pay by check. So I have to collect the checks and, check or money order, but I do. And I have a cool thing. I use property management software called Buildium, and they have something called Pay Near Me. So people can pay cash at CVS. So they literally take a barcode to CVS, scan it, pay cash, automatically updates their lease ledger. They get a receipt that they've paid rent. It's amazing. I think I'm getting like $30,000 a month in cash payments through CVS right now.
That's pretty cool. And I'm sure that it takes some sort of a fee or some sort of
Yeah, they charge $4 to the tenant. So, but yeah, nothing. Now, I know some landlords like rather have it in actual cash so they can like not pay their taxes, but I'm not. I pay my tax. I'm not about that.
No, yeah, for sure. That goes without saying, but that's pretty cool. Oh, it's great to know there's systems like that exist out there. I wasn't aware of that. That's so I learned something new there. But that goes to show you I don't self-manage any properties. So, right. But there you go. Hopefully that will change shortly. But fourth and final question. What does success mean to you?
I think success means to me taking full advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you in life, because everyone has different where they're coming from, advantages, disadvantages. Yes, people are privileged and unprivileged, but you can be very successful living where you came from. I've worked with a lot of poor people in Africa and in Congo and Zambia, and I can see they could have a very successful, fulfilling life in their circumstances, just as I can, or I could have an unsuccessful, fulfilling life, even though I have way more than them because I haven't, used what God gave me and, used my talents correctly.
Absolutely. But I totally agree with that. I think also a lot of us don't even realize the opportunities that are presented to us in the first place. And we're missing out on opportunities because we don't see it sitting right in front of us. And I think that has a lot to do with just being aware, first of all, education, like learning and finding out what things mean and what things are. But, a great example of, if you have a winning lottery ticket, right? This is a bad example because I don't play lottery, but if you have like a winning lottery ticket and, but you don't know that it's a winning number, right? You could be a millionaire, but you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot about like knowing what those skills and those talents that you have inside of you, like figuring that out and really a lot of self-introspection to be able to come to that and to realize what those things are, because only then you'll be able to become who you're meant to become.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that answer. Great answer. We have, that's why I ask, what does it mean to you? Because we get a different answer every time. So I appreciate that. And, David, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Yeah. I'm really active on Instagram. I'm at DIY_landlord. That's at DIY_landlord on Instagram. That's probably the best place. I also have a website, lubonocapital.com. You can go there, shoot me an email if you would like.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes and we'll definitely check you out on the Instagram. And I appreciate you taking the time today, David. It's been a pleasure catching up.
Thank you, Yana.
And to all of our listeners, until next time, remember the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.